coping in the dressing room like Liverpool, which was full of serial winners. My coping mechanism was playing the daft kid, was playing the club joker, playing the one who come out and said silly things or did silly things, or I used to make people laugh. I had the ability to make people laugh, and people wanted me to be around, so I felt comfortable with that, so I felt accepted. My nickname was Trigger, and I played up to Trigger. I played up to him to be accepted. He actually had in the palm of his hand 2 or 3 players away from actually winning the title.
Okay.
And he just wanted a certain number of players out. And he wanted to show the fans as well he was in charge.
Right, okay.
I'm changing it. And the easiest thing to do is get rid of 3 or 4 players and go, they're Spice Boys, they're bang, I want them out. Absolutely broke me.
In what way? What do you mean?
Even now, it upsets me because, you grow up as a Liverpool fan. I can't tell you, it's just surreal.
Jason, welcome to the channel. I just want to ask you a little bit around what's trending in the news around the Irish team at the moment. You see Grealish and Rice scoring against the Republic. What are your thoughts on that?
I was there, and obviously we've done a lot of the build-up to the game. Still a really big fixture, even though there's a big disparity between the quality between the two teams, which has happened over the last 15, 20 years. Certainly from when I was playing, we were a lot closer to them. But there was still that aggression there. There was still that intensity with the fans and what the fixture brings. Going back to your question, yeah, it was one of the questions I got asked on the Friday. TalkSport rang me and asked if I'd do an interview, and I said, yeah. And one of the first questions was, Jack Grealish and Declan Rice, you think they'll get some stick? And obviously, they were an easy target for the fans, so it was always apparent it was going to happen. But from their point of view, I think Jack and Declan are two completely, although they are related and it is a similar situation. Declan ended up playing for the senior team a few times. Jack, decided to pull out of his international career with Ireland at a lot younger age. So you can understand it from two different perspectives. What's the question you're asking me?
I was thinking, do you sympathise with them? Do you agree with it? Do you disagree with it? I'm just interested on that because obviously you mentioned that element of representing Ireland, and then Rice plays for England. Do you agree with the process, or
I think
disagree?
I think the mindset has changed from when I was playing. Listen, I was born in Liverpool, in Birkenhead. It was a time when obviously we'd had Hillsborough. My family was out of work. The government wasn't, the greatest thing in the world for the northern people. So I was brought up as a different mindset, as feeling patriotic. My nan was Welsh. Obviously, I was born in Birkenhead, like I just said. So there was a lot of animosity towards the government. So I never felt patriotic to England. And, I didn't start playing football until I was 20. So, I never, up until 20, I had no ambition of playing for England because I was so far away, right, or playing for any international country. Yeah. So then obviously when I started playing for Bolton, and my career really went from, this level on an upward spiral very, very quickly. And it became apparent that to some people that my quality was good enough to play for a country. So Jimmy Anfield turned up at Bolton and asked me to play for England in a B international, and I never walked away thinking, oh my God, England have asked me to play and I'm desperate to play for England and I'm patriotic and I can't wait to do it. My first initial thought was I want to play for Ireland. And I don't know whether that was because growing up I was a big Liverpool fan and there was a lot of Liverpool players playing for Ireland who were on the granny rule. I don't know whether it was a bit of working in a pub when I was 19 years of age, 20, watching the Irish team in Italia 90, right, meeting the Pope and Romania, and then obviously getting knocked out with Scalacci goal. God bless him, he's just died. The Scalacci goal against Italy. I don't know whether all that played its part, but I really felt like I wanted to play for Ireland. So my initial reaction was, can you notify the FAI and let Jack Charlton know before I make a decision?
Yeah.
So then obviously Jack turns up and, I'm like overwhelmed at the end of the game when he comes up to me and he says, "Do you want to represent Ireland?" It was just a yes straight away. It was two completely different reactions from Jimmy Anfield. So I always had that pull towards Ireland. Now I understand, you know, from what I can't answer the question with, I didn't go through a youth system. So I didn't come through 16s, 18s, 20s. So I was never in the system. So I can't really answer for why Jack has done it or Declan's done it. I just know from my personal experience, I never felt patriotic towards England, but I wanted to play for Ireland. Obviously, they have different reasons, whether that was from a professional point of view where they felt Ireland's not for me. And also, you know, my Irish team and my Irish generation that I was playing in were extremely successful. You know, they'd been to the Euros 88, then they'd been to the World Cup in 90, missed out in 92, then it was all of a sudden it was 94 World Cup, which obviously I was introduced into and played. So I was at a different time than what they were. So I can't really answer to it. Listen, and we're each to our own. You know, they've chosen their own reasons for their own reasons. You know, it's not being detrimental towards Ireland. They obviously feel that they want to play for England and that's the way they want to go.
So on that then, Jason, did you have to maybe adopt that element of being Irish then? Did you have to learn about the culture? Because you said you kind of grew up in a kind of a pub and you understood and you were influenced and you were inspired by watching Italian 90. Did you have to maybe learn a little bit more about the culture going into the Irish team? And
no, not really. You know, my first game was against Russia at Lansdowne Road, and you know, I was very new to football. I was still wet behind the ears, although I'd been playing for Bolton maybe for 2.5 seasons, maybe 3 seasons, touching, and then I'm now representing a country on the brink of going to a World Cup. You know, I was playing for Marine Reserves. You know, in 1990, in 1994, I was playing in the World Cup at Giant Stadium in front of 100,000 people. So, you know, it was all very new and very quick. You know, I wasn't told I needed to learn the national anthem. My grandfather was from Ireland, from my dad's side, so obviously I had that connection. And I was just really introduced into it, and all of a sudden, you know, felt very at home, very, very quickly, you know, with the players. Obviously, I was in awe of a lot of the players, the senior players, the Aldridge, Staunton, you know, Ray Houghton, Ronnie Whelan. You know, obviously I was drawn to them because it was Liverpool. But, you know, we had Paul McGrath. And I think what helped me as well is Phil Babb and Gary Kelly. We were all three were introduced at the same time. Yeah. So the kind of three of us bounced off each other. And we kind of got a grips to things in our own young way, really. We were messers. We were there to be introduced as the next generation, to kind of bring a bit of freshness and youthfulness to the squad, which was aging and sort of dying off a little bit. So, you know, the one thing I did struggle with was tactically. You know, I then signed for Liverpool, where you can't give the ball away, and, you know, Ronnie Moran would batter you if you dared give the ball away or even thought about it, to then Jack Charlton, which was just get it and lump it as far as you could. So I did struggle tactically, but from a cultural side of things, no, I didn't struggle at all.
Everything that you see on this channel, from the scripts to the interviews to the thumbnails, etc., is all off my own back. And to help the channel grow and to help me out, could you please click the subscribe button down below? It's absolutely free to do, and the more subscribers we get on this channel, the bigger the guests and the bigger the entertainment is for you to have some great insights to explore some of the things that are happening within the sporting world. So please click the subscribe button down below if you haven't already. You mentioned Marine then. Do you feel you've benefited from maybe not going into an academy system and kind of learning football maybe at a lower age group, lower level, and kind of working your way up? You see players that go through the academy system and then make first team appearances. I suppose your journey is different in that sense, where you've learned your trade differently in comparison to the modern day footballer. Did that benefit you?
Yeah,
think?
Listen, I understand the academy system and I understand why it was brought in. The game was changing, and, you know, business was obviously coming into it, financial gain was coming into it, and people were exploiting the world really for younger players. So I do get the academy system, not that I totally agree with it. You know, my system coming through was completely different to an academy system. Yeah. It was school of excellence. It was Tuesday night, Thursday night. If you're good enough, you know, they'd keep you on around, and you'd play at 14, 15, 16 at a professional team. You weren't signed professional until you went on to YTS, which wasn't really professional. It was just 2 years development. So again, I missed out on all that. I had trials for Man United. I had trials for Everton, Tranmere, you know, and just was deemed not good enough, really. So, so Marine, you know, local football for me, Saturday, Sunday was one thing, but then stepping up into a semi-professional arena where I only played about 6 or 7 times for the first team in about 2 years, 2.5 years, 3 seasons maybe. So I was playing in a league called the first team were in the HFS Loans League, it was called at the time. It was probably like Northwest County standard, but the reserves was in a league called the Lancashire League. And what league that was Liverpool A team, Everton, Blackburn, Man United. It was all their kids, kind of, they had at this school of excellence. So my Marine team, we were all young lads, basically young lads who'd been released and deemed not good enough. So we all come together, and quite quickly you could feel a sense amongst the lads of determination and rejection, and how you were going to deal with that rejection. Yeah. And, you know, as nasty as it is at the time, you know, to a young 14, 15, 16, rejection's a horrible thing at that age. It's hormones everywhere, you know, rejection in all different areas, whether it's girls or whatever it may be, you know, getting jobs you're applying for, schools or this. You know, we deal with rejection between them ages quite a lot, to be honest. And it's how you harness that, and how you want to react to that, really. And I think, you know, statistically, there's a lot of things coming out of academies now, because they've been around a while, where they are seeing the players that make it. You know, a lot of them are from like broken homes, broken parent marriages. You know, some of them have got to, you know, fight for everything. You know, even now, even in this modern day, and they seem to be the ones that come through, the ones that have to fight. I was from a very similar background, and, you know, as much as what happened to me won't happen now. You won't get signed now professionally when you're 20. It'd be very few and far between now. But that rejection kind of taught me a lesson, never to give up, and to fight and keep fighting and keep pushing and keep exploiting opportunities. And, you know, if you get rejected, you get up and you go again. And, you know, I had people around me who, like my mum, my parents, my dad was from a boxing family, and, you know, it was a tough upbringing from my dad and his family, and that kind of reflected on the way I grew up a little bit. But my mum was always there to kind of wipe away the tears and say, don't worry, there'll be another opportunity. And I kind of, at that age as well, you lean on your mum, don't you? Of course, yeah. Believe what she says, and, you know, another opportunity would come, and she'd take me, and, you know, then we'd go again, and then it would be more rejection, and then go again, it'd be more rejection, and then all of a sudden, you know, you just have one perfect storm, and then the opportunity arises, and you take it.
So that element of fear as well, did you find that a fear of not making it, or fear of not being someone? You mentioned rejection. I think also from a psychological point of view, it's like I'm kind of running towards something that I don't want to trip up on, and I've got to keep going again. And you mentioned that element of boxing and that a sense of discipline integrated within that.
Going again.
Yeah, is that something that motivated you and funneled that energy to become a footballer?
Yeah, I mean, you know, you take on board what people say to you, and, you know, I was underdeveloped when I was kind of 40. I was really small. I was the small kid in the class, and the skinny one, and, you know, a lot of kids developed quicker than what I did, and obviously, you know, them ages as well is a big factor. You know, you've got kids who could be 5'7" and built like this with little moustaches, and then you've got me who's like, you know, 4 stone wet through. It's like, you know, it's just not going to work when you're trying to go for something. And then all of a sudden I had this growth spurt, started filling out, started becoming more confident in myself, and then believing, you just keep believing, wow, you know, I'm getting quicker, I'm getting stronger, and, you know, developing a lot quicker than what I was. And now you're, you know, catching these kids up. So now it becomes on a level playing field, and you're getting more and more confidence. I think that I always remember, you know, I got to school, I wasn't very academic at all, ended up, you know, sitting down with my mum really, and having this frank conversation about, you know, where's your life going to go at 15, 16, you know, what are you going to do? Because, you know, he's gone off to Liverpool, he's gone off to Everton, School of Excellence, they're going to take him on as a YTS. That's not there for you. That opportunity's not there for you. So, you know, what are you going to do? Because it's not there, and it needs to be there for you to carry on that. So I was kind of like, well, you know, what was I good at school? I was art. You know, I was really good at drawing and stuff. I had an eye for it, and a passion for it, really. So I literally went to Whiddens Lane, which is in Wallasey. It was an art college, and studied. I'd done a year of sort of bedding in. It wasn't like a bit like a foundation course to see which direction you wanted to go. And then I decided to go into the graphic design because there was probably more good looking girls on that course than anything else. So I ended up, making friends with a couple of lads. There's a couple of nice looking girls on there. So we'll go down that route. So we went down the graphic design route, and I ended up at college for 2 years, loved it, but was just playing footy all the time. It was kind of a means to an end, really. Working in a pub as a barman, glass collector, then a barman. Picking up life skills from there, which, at the time you don't realise, but, having to deal with people and situations and stuff. And just playing local league football. But, it got to the point where, everything ended. And I had to sign on the dole. And I remember going to sign on and just thinking, what is this all about? Like, there's more to me than SWAT. Yeah. So I felt a bit degraded, to be honest, thinking, it's not for the one I'm not trying. It's just not happening, but I can't do this. So my uncle was in America, and I was offered a soccer scholarship in America. So I went, met up with all the people, got the scholarship, and I came back to do an SAT in Manchester, funny enough. And while I was back, I went back to play for Marine Reserves, and that's where I got spotted, playing for Marine Reserves in that 3-month period. I mean, how it could all be so different.
Talk to me about Bolton then. So how did that transition happen then? So you mentioned you got spotted. How did that come about?
Yeah, so I came back in the January, but just before Christmas. And in the January, obviously, I'd gone back to play for Marine Reserves, and we had a game. Phil Neal, he was against Bolton A team, and Phil Neal, who was the manager of Bolton first team, senior team, he was there watching the kids play in the morning. A lot of the managers do that. They, to probably go and process what's going on later on in the day. They go for a bit of time out and go and watch the youngsters play. And I think with Phil Neal as well, it was a bit of a Shankly thing that he'd go and watch the kids play. And obviously he was under Shankly and old school, so he obviously went to watch Bolton's kids. We played against Bolton's kids, and again, I mentioned that we're perfect storm. It was just one of them games, scored a few, set a few up, stood out a million miles. I'd come back from America with my tail up, really, because I'd got this soccer scholarship. Right. So I'll come back a little bit like, a bit full of myself a little bit. Probably thinking I'm better than this. And everything just clicked. At the end of the game, Dave Ramsden was the manager, and Phil Neal obviously approached him, said, listen, I like the look of this kid. What's the situation? I was on non-contract at Marine. And then on the Sunday night, that was the Saturday morning, the Sunday night, my mum takes a phone call from Phil Neal asking me to go on trial with Bolton for a week. And then also says, how would you get there? And Sammy Lee will pick him up. If you can get him to the Adelphi in Liverpool, he'll pick him up. So next thing, I'm on a train to the Adelphi Monday morning. I get off, I'm standing outside the Adelphi, and Sammy Lee picks you up, and I'm like, whoa, my God. And then I'm down at Bolton. I'm on trial. I'm straight in with the first team. And Bolton was struggling at the time as well. The senior team was struggling. Phil was on his last legs, really. And then I get to the end of the season. So they give me a contract to the end of the season, which is May. And then Phil is sacked. And then probably the biggest change in fortune for my football career was Bruce Rioch comes in and offers me another year. So I'm now another year pro. And we start off in the July for pre-season, and then that's when it kind of all starts for me.
Did you feel a sense like maybe imposter syndrome? You mentioned that element of being on the dole, working in a pub, and then all of a sudden you're in this elite environment. How did you cope with that?
Do you know what? I mean, you mentioned it before about the upbringing and playing Sunday League football, where literally you get the shit kicked out of you, to be honest. And you've got to learn quickly, and you've got to learn banter, back chat, and you've got to learn to jump as high as you can at times. And you're taking punches from all over the place, and people kneeing you and stuff. And, I stood out at local league, Sunday league and Saturday league. I actually stood out because of my fitness and my enthusiasm, really. And I learned to take the punches. So, all of a sudden you go from getting the shit kicked out of you to a bit more culture, even though it was lower league football, professional football, it's still a bit more cultured. and you are protected a little bit more. So I was kind of equipped, really, to go into professional football from a physical point of view. But I actually felt it was a bit easier.
Okay.
I felt you had a bit more time on the ball. You know, you're taught to stand up as long as you can when you're defending. When you're playing Sunday League, the 2 foot, you're from about this height. You know what I mean? So you kind of, I don't know, it's kind of like you've got different senses.
Yeah.
So it was kind of a good upbringing for me to go into professional football. I was just lucky I was given the opportunity. So I actually felt it was a bit easier, and I was really fit. I was cross-country champion when I was like 12 years of age. Yeah, 10 years when I was 10. I was Northwest champion at judo when I was 12.
Wow.
So, you know, I was really fit, and, you know, I was just probably equipped to go into professional football at that age.
Did you box as well? You mentioned your dad.
No, my mum wouldn't let me.
No,
because, I mean, my mum, you know, my uncle's boxer in the 70s, the 80s, you know, when, you know, they literally got battered.
Yeah.
So my mum, you know, she just wanted to protect me from that, really.
I'm going to fast forward a little bit, and I'm interested on the transition to Liverpool. So you mentioned your upbringing then, and you mentioned that element of being a local lad and what it means to be a Scouser and up north, and you mentioned the words of government and Hillsborough and all those factors that happened. Going to Liverpool, did you feel a sense of pressure being a local lad and going into an environment where you're representing a city and you know the meaning more than maybe other players that might not be from the area?
Yeah, I felt that later on in my career at Liverpool. Initially, I struggled to deal with the pressure of actually winning. I mean, it's one thing trying to win the Sunday League, you know, local, whatever it is, trophy or whatever. It's another thing trying to win the league with Marine reserves. And then Bolton, you know, you're obviously striving for promotion, which we got under Bruce Rioch. We got 2 promotions, ended up in the Premier League. And obviously the League Cup final where I played at Wembley, but I'd also played in the World Cup by the time I'd signed for Liverpool. Yeah. So I was kind of like equipped for certain scenarios. But I can't tell you that the pressure of signing for Liverpool, where you've got to win. You've just got to win. There is no place for second. The club's built on success, and it's built on this, you know, many a player have come through Liverpool's ranks at whatever level and, you know, not been able to cope with that pressure. And that was the first thing that I noticed. It was like, you know, you've gone from playing for Bolton, and I was becoming a little bit of a star, to be honest. You know, there was a lot of headlines, me and Alan Stubbs and Alan Thompson. You know, we were making back page of the papers. We'd had some big results. You know, we'd knocked Liverpool out the cup. We knocked Everton, Arsenal. You know, I was heavily involved in all them games. So, you know, I kind of knew what pressure was. But I hadn't, you know, I wasn't equipped for like what Liverpool threw at you. Not at all. And it was quickly apparent that, you know, you've got to step up. You've got to go to another level here. What helped me was the squad was made. Liverpool were in a transitional period with Roy Evans and Graham Souness. You know, Roy had taken over from Graham. Graham tried to change the club. He tried to move the club forward into probably a different era, into a more modern era, coming back from Italy. And, you know, he tried to change a lot. Plus, there was a lot of aging great players there who he wanted out. Yeah. Plus, he had the English rule had come in. We need so many English players. So Graham tried to change too much too quick. Roy settled the ship but wanted to rebuild. And obviously that was from, you know, obviously trying to find the best youngsters around. And he had a great base for that. You know, Robbie and Steve McManaman had come through their School of Excellence Academy, you know, their youth programme. And then, you know, Jamie had come in. Don Hutchinson had gone. But then he bought Phil Babb after the World Cup. David James was still young. Rob Jones was young. And then he obviously brought me and Stan Collymore in the same season. So, you know, we knew we had to compete with Manchester United, who had gone young as well. You know, they'd kind of produced their kids, as you know, class of 92. So we were competing against them. So you could see what Roy was trying to do. And in all intents and purposes, kind of succeeded, really, although some would say we'd failed because we didn't actually win anything. But, you know, we competed for 3 or 4 seasons against that Man United team. So yeah, it was just learning to cope with the pressure of what that football club's all about.
And did you sense that with the other Scousers? You mentioned Robbie Fowler and Steve McManaman. You mentioned that word pressure. Did they have similar outlooks towards that, or were you different?
They were
in
born
into
it, weren't they? You know, they come through in a system where, you know, they trained with the likes of McMahon and Rush and all them great players, Molby, and they'd seen the club winning things, so they don't know any different. Yeah. I've had a couple of promotions, got to the League Cup final, ironically lost against Liverpool, but I still hadn't won anything. I got to the World Cup and stuff. It's great, and it's it's unbelievable. It's the peak of your career, isn't it, playing for your country in a World Cup? But I still haven't won anything. Winning something is such a vital, important ingredient in an elite athlete, because you feel you belong at the top. You feel, that's your playground. That's where you need to be. And, if you win something, you've got over the line. You're the best. Unfortunately, I never, won a playoff final, which was great, but it's still not. I could still look at my career and say I didn't win anything. Mm-hmm. So, but these players were born into that. They knew no different. So that's why Robbie and Macca were very special.
Mm.
They were different than the likes of me and Jamie. For all the quality all the other players brought, them two stood out. And the reason was, I think, is because they come through a system where they just knew.
Just on that then. So why do you think there was a limitation in terms of winning trophies at that time in Liverpool? You mentioned that you kind of, I wouldn't say the word regret, but you wish you would have had one more.
Of course, yeah.
Why do you think that never happened at that time in Liverpool? You mentioned, the old terminologies used around the Spice Boys period and all those different famous teams that were during that period. Why do you think that wasn't successful for you?
I think
that makes sense, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, no one really has the answer to failure, do they? I mean, now, it's all data and stats, and you can go through the haystack with a fine comb, can't you? And find out more information now and find out why. Back then, data analysis was very limited, and who knows why? Was it mindset? Fine margin, this word that we use in football now. It was like that back then, but who knows what it was? It certainly wasn't for the lack of trying or the lack of wanting to do it. We competed really well. I mean, my career at Liverpool I finished third, fourth, third. Arsene Wenger would treat that as success, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
His Arsenal team, Champions League football every season, they go, wow, it's so successful. Back then, it was only the champions played in Europe, and then it went to the top two. We just missed out. Got to an FA Cup final. We lost in the 82nd minute. Cantona scored. Everyone blames the white suits. We weren't wearing the white suits to play. We just turned up in a white suit, and our mentality wasn't any different than any other game we went into. Probably more heightened because it was the FA Cup final.
Do you think that's exaggerated, the white suits?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, absolutely. I mean, I know Alex Ferguson uses. We've obviously heard the story. He used that in his team talk to motivate his players. But listen, when you're at that level and you're going into an FA Cup final, you're in the zone, in your own zone. You're not in a team zone. The manager can tell you everything he wants to tell you, but you're psychologically preparing yourself for that game. So you do what is comfortable for you. So you're in your own mindset. You could tell me whatever you wanted to tell me, and it would go in this ear and out the other. And 10 seconds later, I'd be back in my own mindset, trying to figure out how I'm going to play well, what drives me, gets the best out of me. I went through a career looking for that. I used to sit on the toilet sometimes. I remember playing Holland away in the Amsterdam Arena, sitting in the toilet just before we went out to play, just sitting on the toilet, looking at the back of the door, talking to myself, going, you're good enough to play in this game. You're good enough to play in this game. You'll play well today. The last game you played, you were really good. That cross you put in, and just keep doing things like that. Mentally going through a thing just to get myself prepared. You could be telling me everything you wanted. I wouldn't be listening to it.
Really?
No, it's just, it's what how you prepare yourself.
Do you think coaches talk too much then in the dressing room because of that sense? You see a lot of coaches animated in the dressing rooms trying to motivate, but all players are different. Does that work, do you think, in terms of what motivates you? Because you just mentioned then it's very much
coaching styles vary, don't they? And I think the best coaches are the ones who get the best out of individuals by talking to them as individuals rather than as a collective. Listen, a coach can talk for half an hour. You probably will take in 2 minutes of that 30 minutes. you'll probably take in 2 minutes, and that will probably be the instructions that where he wants you at a corner or where he wants you to be, or you might take a little tiny thing of what he says in that half an hour or 10 minutes or whatever he talks for. It will be that much compared to that much he speaks. So it's just, I remember people being really nervous in my early days at Bolton, and Bruce Ray could come down and sit next to me and just tap me on the leg and go, "You'll be okay today." I mean, let's go out and enjoy it. Yeah. That makes me laugh. Like, you don't enjoy anything. No, it's, mate, you're an elite athlete trying to win a football match at all costs. You don't enjoy it until you're 3 or 4-0 up and the game becomes easy. And that's, I used to love it at Anfield at 3-0, 4-0. You're not going to get beat, and everything just relaxes. You just feel like you can run forever, and there's no stress, and you've won the game. You just go out and enjoy yourself. You can probably express yourself a little bit more because the pressure's off. The crowd aren't on you. They're not scrutinising everything you do. The pressure's not there. The stress is not there. It's not filtering onto the pitch because it's 0-0 and there's 10 minutes to go. That's horrible. When they've got 11 men behind the ball and you're trying to break them down. Yeah. They're so deep. And you're swinging balls and it's getting crossed and the crowd are like, oh, it's like, oh my God. It's just horrible. It's just horrible. 3-0 up. Like, they don't care. It's like, it's brilliant. So, yeah, I mean, there's lots of different factors that go into mindset. It's a massive thing, but it's what gets you up for the game.
Yeah. Just on that, you mentioned, the element of pressure and the coping strategies, and you mentioned talking to yourself in the toilet and kind of believing in yourself. Did you ever work on that as a player? And obviously it's different today because there's more awareness of mental well-being and mental health. But I'm just interested did you ever, try and understand your feelings during that period? And you mentioned your mum as well. Like, yeah. Were you close to people during that period? I'm just interested for you. You're a human being at the end of the day. You mentioned the element of the crowd and that. It's a human reaction, isn't it? And people forget that.
90s was the biggest change in football for me. Like the 90s was the best decade of football for lots of different reasons. The introduction of more revenue, which expanded football clubs, which obviously expanded scouting and coaching systems. And we could introduce now different things and develop medical science and diet science and data science. All that came in because of revenue generated from TV revenue and sponsorship deals and everything. So, and then the football changed. It was a great culture to be around, the music culture, and everyone was kind of in it together a little bit. And football was coming out of that generation, that drinking culture. I mean, I had both sides of it. I got introduced to football in the 90s, very early 90s, where there was still that drinking culture, to the change in football, which was 92, 93 with the football revenue, the TV revenue. Football changed, become more professional. Drink sort of alcohol and preparing and all this kind of stuff kind of changed a bit. Then there was the influence of the foreign players because there was more money and foreign coaches coming in with different ideas, and everything changed. Everything changed. So I seen the full spectrum of it changing. As far as mental health and well-being, you were it was very much down to you, how you prepared, how you got over things, how you got over defeats, how you got over criticism. It was a tough place to be. It's very easy when people say, well, don't read it. But mate, if it's there, you're like that. Yeah. What did I get? Did I get a 6 or did I get a 7? I got an 8. I must have played well and all that. It's easy to tell yourself, well, I played well there, but then you see someone else's opinion and it's like, oh, and then you start like questioning things. It's really, really difficult. There was no psychologists, there was no, you had to cope. You had to cope in your own way. And I mentioned it before off camera, coping in a dressing room like Liverpool, which was full of serial winners and also drinkers and also young lads who were changing over. My coping mechanism was playing the daft kid, was playing the club joker, playing the one who come out and said silly things or did silly things, or I used to make people laugh. I had the ability to make people laugh, and people wanted me to be around, so I felt comfortable with that, so I felt accepted. So I would carry on that. My nickname was Trigger, and I played up to Trigger. I played up to him to be accepted. And plus, again, I go right back. I didn't come through an academy or a football environment So it was still all new to me. How do you survive in that dressing room? How do you survive? And I quickly found, a way of surviving, and I held on to it to my detriment at the end of football.
You mentioned the alcohol element. Did you ever get caught up in that, in terms of that escapism? You mentioned the pressures and everything associated with, being a footballer. Did you ever kind of get caught up with alcohol and going out and just trying to escape some of the realities that you found yourself in because of the lack of awareness and lack of support?
Yeah, there was no mobile phones back then. So, mobile phones now with cameras and social media platforms and stuff, everything is instant, aren't you? So, you're bang to rights, aren't you? People take a picture of you at 3 a.m. and put it on social media. You're there, aren't you? It's like, I was there, So, don't get me wrong. There was the odd night we used to sneak out. Of course there was. With Ireland, we'd sneak out every now and again, break curfews every now and again. Of course that would happen. I'm not going to sit here and lie and go, no, we towed the line in every aspect. No, we didn't. There was times where we broke the rules, times when we probably went out when we shouldn't, but it was by no means a very regular occurrence. It would be every now and again. And I mentioned it before, right? We were in a culture where the fans had to accept that the world was changing and the game was changing. There was no TV advertisements. There was no magazines to fill in the 70s and the 80s. Maybe Shoot or Match came along, didn't it? But all of a sudden, you've got this very glamorous world now where lots of money's being pumped into it. Businesses and big organisations and blue chip companies now are wanting to advertise but use footballers. I mean, who would not want to use Jamie Redknapp and Patrick Berger on the front of the magazine or the cereal packet? I mean, two good-looking lads who would sell things for these companies, GQ, and, we all had a little spell of doing it. If you're not winning, people look for excuses. Now, people can look for excuses through data and analysis and churn out, we were this and we don't, and they can protect the players. Back then, it was if you got beat, it was like, well, why were you on the front cover of GQ magazine? Right. Why were you on the front cover of Vogue or Company? Okay. You should have been at home sleeping. That's why we lost on Saturday, because you were too busy doing a modelling shoot for Armani, JMO. And it's like, well, is it? And people, there was an acceptance where people just couldn't change over. We were right in the middle of the changeover. We had some saying, well, why can't they do that? And it's not. And we had a lot of people saying, no, you should be in bed. No, you should be resting. It's a big game Saturday. Man United was still doing it. David Beckham was still doing it. Giggs was still doing it. All these players from Man United, but they were winning, so it was accepted. Yeah. Oh, it's okay for them because they're winning. So that's where we were caught up in it, and that's where it becomes a little bit murky and muddy. But yeah, it's just
the norm.
Yeah.
Leaving Liverpool then, that transition, and you mentioned earlier around winning trophies and not seeing it as success because that intrinsic reward was never linked with your time there. What was that like for you, leaving your boyhood club and moving on?
Absolutely broke me.
In what way? What do you mean?
Just as a person. Just like, even now, it upsets me because, you grow up as a Liverpool fan. I used to live on a hill in Tranmere, just up from Birkenhead. I mean, it was like that. I think that's why I was so fit, because my mate used to live at the bottom and I lived at the top. Seriously, right? This is how mad my brain works, right? So remember Crime Watch?
Yeah.
Right. So Crime Watch was a big programme when I was growing up. And I used to live at the bottom. I used to live at the top of this hill, Town Road, and my mate lived at the bottom. And I used to go down to his house, and my mum would say to me, you've got to be back in for 7 o'clock, 7:30 or whatever. So I remember coming out of his house, and it would be pitch black, obviously in the winter, the dark nights are coming in. And I had to run up this hill as fast as I could. And in my head, I was thinking, I don't want to be involved in a Crime Watch reconstruction here. And that used to play on my mind. And I used to sprint up this hill. Mate, I used to be just sprint all the way up, because I used to think I'm going to get abducted or murdered. This Crime Watch thing was just in my head. I honestly think that's why I was so fit. I used to run up this hill, run home, be out of breath. I used to run everywhere when I was a kid. Everywhere I used to run. Crazy. It's like Forrest Gump. So I used to overlook, at the top of this hill, my house, I used to overlook Liverpool. So we used to overlook Camel Heads, the docks, and you used to have this big landscape of Liverpool. And I grew up a Liverpool fan. And, you know, your dream is to play for Liverpool. But as a kid, you know, you're reaching for the stars, aren't you? There's no concept of everything in the way. No concept. And then all of a sudden, when you get that phone call, and I'll never forget that, being in the car with Stubbsy, you know, and the phone call comes from your agent, Blackburn are interested, but then Liverpool are on the brink, and then you get the phone call, Liverpool want to sign you. I can't tell you, like, it's just surreal. And then you sign for Liverpool, and then you're quickly in professional. So you got to, you know, you do all the things as a professional, and you play for Liverpool, and you become this you feel like the superhero. It's like, it's amazing. And like, you know, you want it to last forever. You want it to last forever. And at one point, it was lasting forever. You know, I was first choice wing back, signed a new contract, 25 grand a week, loving life. I was a superstar. And it was the changeover, you know, of all this, you know, the money coming into it. So, you know, I'm on the front of, you know, or I was certainly doing GQ magazine, and, you know, and the other thing as well of that period is that culture was the culture of pop bands, where the Spice Girls, All Saints, you know, and as much as their generation, their environment is their environment, the music scene, and then you've got the sports scene. At the end of the day, what it boils down to is very, very young adults going through a system of pressure and stress to succeed and deal with, you know, stardom. Like, you know, I remember having conversations with Melanie from the Spice Girls, who was going through the same thing as what we were, the pressures of like people pushing them and pushing them and pushing them and pushing them. No wonder like we all end up like a little bit crazy. But like, it was immense pressure. So you would gravitate together because you had things in common. So, you know, Jamie ended up with Louise and was, you know, ended up marrying Louise and whatever. And, you know, our relationships, we had a very close relationship with the Spice Girls because, you know, they were football, and we'd come together and we'd speak. Other pop bands, Robbie Williams got involved, and, you know, we were all we were all going through the same thing, but just in different environments. Yeah. So we attracted to each other, probably because of stress and pressure. And again, you know, fans would be like, you can't go out pop stars. What are you doing at pop stars? What are you doing this? What are you doing? So, you know, going back to your question, I know it was a bit of a long-winded answer. You know, football, again, the change in football, Liverpool decided to go in a different direction. It was trendy to be French because they'd won the 98 World Cup. Gérard Houllier had come in. Right. You know, the club wanted to move away from the boot room. And Gérard Houllier had come in with this pre-perception of this Spice Boys, and we were like party animals, and it was so far from the truth. He actually had in the palm of his hand 2 or 3 players away from actually winning the title. Okay. And he just wanted a certain number of players out, and he wanted to show the fans as well he was in charge. Right, okay. I'm changing it, and the easiest thing to do is get rid of 3 or 4 players and go, they're Spice Boys, they're bang, I want them out. And the other thing he had at his disposal, he had a young Jamie Carragher, he had a young Steven Gerrard, and he had a young Michael Owen coming through. Very, very talented players who were, you know, were the easy ones to ease in and say to the fans, right, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make a statement here, and I'm going to bring them through here. And the other thing he had, which I certainly think Roy Evans would have done, and he should have lost all 3 finals, is he'd done the treble. He should have lost all 3 finals in, you know, you watch the games back. They were very lucky to get it. But all 3.
Yeah. But he played by Team Birmingham. I don't know if you remember that final.
And Penn's one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it could have gone either way. Alaves could have gone either way. And Arsenal, I mean, how they won that Arsenal game is beyond belief. Yeah. So, you know, he cemented his decisions by winning them 3 trophies, getting these players out, bringing these young ones through, all of a sudden flourished. And he was untouchable. But he wasn't that far away from winning the league with the actual squad he had. So leaving Liverpool for me, I felt was very premature. But in the manner in which I left really hurt me. And then, I signed for Blackburn, and then the press conference, I'm crying in the press conference.
Really?
And the headlines and the next day in the papers, McAteers. And it was just me wiping a tear away from my eye. And, you know, it was at that point I realised there was no going back.
Yeah.
And it was over. The dream was over.
Could nothing compare then? When you left Liverpool, was it in your head that I can never get that high back? Or did you find other ways to, enjoy football more? And you mentioned Blackburn and Sunderland. You've always got that in the back of your head, that high of playing for Liverpool. Did you?
Yeah,
did you get what I mean when I say that in terms of like that, just observing your career?
Yeah, do you know what it's like? It's like playing for Liverpool is like you do it because you love it.
Yeah.
And like you love going to work every morning. Yeah. You love everything about it and you love playing. Although the pressure's immense, that becomes a drug then. That becomes like, that just puts you on another level.
Is that dangerous in that sense then?
Yeah.
Think about your identity and who you are, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, you become a little bit like, you need to be brought back down to earth.
Right.
And we had a good set of mates around us. You look at Robbie. Robbie's always had the same mate. Steve McManaman's had the same mate. I had the same mate through my football career. He ended up becoming a policeman and we ended up losing touch. We still speak now, but not as close. But I had my mate Liam who come with me and he did everything with me. He was like my little sidekick. He's like your wingman, do you know what I mean? He's the one you can depend on and he's your best mate. We all had one. It was mad. You all had one. I don't know what that is, and I've never delved into that, but maybe it's something to sound off on, or someone to help you out, or when you're really low, he's the one who helps you. I don't know, but yeah, sign of a Blackburn, football become a job. Then it really become a job, and it become a bit of a grind. And my personal life was a mess. I'd gone through stuff that every human being goes through, which is miscarriage, death. I was in that stage of my life where, I'd just settled down, trying to have kids. So then that happens, and then a couple of deaths in the family, close deaths, which really affect you. I had a change of manager where I didn't get on with the new manager, and everything was just spiraling out of control, where I just felt I wanted to quit. Just had enough. And I think, as you said, coming down from the high of Liverpool to then, I think if I was at Liverpool and I went through the same scenario in my personal life, I think I would have coped a lot better. I just think that everything could come crashing down at once. And it was just like a real crazy time. Just like, I just couldn't cope. I'm no psychologist and no counsellor, and day by day, really
reflecting? Did you find yourself
just day by day and like, just, I don't know, you just go into autopilot, really. You get up, you get in the car, you go train, drive up to Blackburn, go train it, and you drive home, match day, and you just keep doing it. The doctor, we had Dave Fever, who used to be the Man United physio. We had him as our physio, and we had a doctor called Phil Batty, and Phil was sort of early 90s you had part-time doctors, and then mid 90s they kind of went full-time. So we had a full-time doctor, Phil Batty, and he became very much a shoulder, not to cry on, but a shoulder to lean on, really. And I've become very close to that. And I also had a couple of injuries, so I was with them quite a bit. So they helped me out, as much as they're not a psychological background, medical backgrounds theirs, they very much did become counsellors to me. And I shared a lot of stuff, went through a lot of stuff with Phil. And probably without him, I probably would have quit, I probably just would have packed it in. And then who knows, I don't know, it's hindsight, isn't it? But, he was very much around for me to cope.
Do you feel like maybe you share that advice with current players now? Does anyone come to you in terms of maybe your experiences? Or do you feel like you need to funnel that onto, the modern game in terms of these scenarios that you've been in and these experiences? Do you find yourself sharing these stories to help younger athletes? Just interested on that.
No, it's a shame, really. The modern game now, they're so much more private, the players, and they are as much as we were in a bubble, they very much are in a bubble. And they don't offer themselves a lot, the ones, because I'm an ambassador for Liverpool, where I do work for them in that kind of context. And I've travelled with the first team, I've been on tour with the first team, been around them, and I've mixed with them doing certain endorsements or whatever for partnerships. And still, the likes of James Milner, would engage a lot, and we have a good relationship. Jordan Henderson with another one. And then if you go the next generation down, the Trent, Virgil, Mo keeps himself to himself. They're not really interested. They don't approach you. But they, like I said, when you're an elite athlete. The other thing as well, elite athletes, a lot of them, I don't know what statistically it would be, but I'm going to go high 80s would have OCD and are very superstitious.
Right.
And when you're like that, you stick to what you know. So you don't really, you do what you do. See, the psychologist is psychologist. You don't need an ex-player to tell you the pitfalls of things that go on. You just don't engage. So it's a very, very closed shop, and I don't get asked to do it. So,
Did you have any superstitions yourself?
Oh, loads, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my God, yeah, OCD at maximum, yeah. Everything's got to be tidy. I make my bed every day. When I was playing,
socks and shin pads. Is that
yeah? I seen a thing by an admiral of the Navy, the American Navy, and he gives this talk, and he talks about making your bed, and he goes, when you get up in the morning, you make your bed, you might have the worst day, and this might happen and that might happen. He said, but when you go to bed at night, your bed's made, and you get into a nice made bed. I think it kind of stunned me a little bit. But yeah, I mean, as far as playing, I mean, if I played well, I'd always eat the next game. I'd always eat the same food.
Right.
I'd always drive in the same way.
Okay.
To the ground or the training ground, wherever we left our cars. I had this thing with tie-ups, so I asked Ian Rush for a pair of his laces once, and he didn't know why, and he just gave me one of his laces out of his boots, and I cut it in half and used it as my tie-ups. So I had that. I'd always tie my boots before kick-off, so I'd go out like just before kick-off. When they come out and they shake hands, do the toss, always tie my boots. I touch the pitch before I run out. Always touched Anfield. This is Anfield. Always touch that. That's a given.
Are you religious? Are you any element there?
I don't know where to stand on religion. I've just read Sapien, and the first half of Sapien actually blew me away. Have you read it?
Read parts of it.
It gets a bit of a tough read in the end, doesn't it? But it blew me away, the fact that how things have become and have evolved, to keep people in check and to get power and all this kind of stuff. And it kind of blew me away a little bit, and it kind of changed my perspective. Although I don't know whether I am a believer. I don't know. It's a tough one. I do speak to a higher, I do look up when I'm like, give me something. I do. I don't know who I'm talking to. God, I don't know. And I live in Qatar now, so I'm obviously in a Muslim country where religion is very strong, and a lot of my mates are Muslims and heavily practicing Muslims as well. So, I do get the culture and I do get things, and there are certain things of religion I like. There are other things I dislike. So, but I'm very open to lots of different religions. Yeah, I'm open. I don't know what happens to you when you die. I like to think you do come back in some capacity. It's a strange one. Yeah.
How do you enjoy Qatar in comparison to the UK?
How do I enjoy Qatar? I've been going for 13 years, so out of all the Middle Eastern countries, it was the most underdeveloped when I first went, and then they obviously got the World Cup, and the country just expanded. Just a boom. So I've obviously seen it grow over the last 13 or 14 years to what it is today, and it's been a phenomenal evolution, really. I'm still coming to terms all this time that it is actually a country. It's set in its ways. The culture is very, very much still there. What do I think? I like it. I'm at a stage in my life. Listen, if I was 25, I probably wouldn't like it. It wouldn't offer what I'd need at 25. But being, over 50, what it offers for me is what I need. I'm not looking for nightclubs. I'm not looking for anything. I just want a nice, quiet life where they've got a couple of golf courses, which is great. It's got work. It's got some nice set of people there. And it's looked after me, and I've got a lot of friends there now. I like it.
How do you enjoy punditry? Did you have to learn that skill, or is it something that you've just been into maybe when you were playing, around opinionated points of view? I'm just interested on how you integrate that within your career.
Yeah, I enjoyed it in the beginning. Obviously when you kind of finishing your career and you're winding down and maybe picking up a few more injuries, the media world was then asking you to go and do a couple of games, and I just enjoyed it. I really, really enjoyed it. And it was at that point in my career where, is it coaching? Is it media? And I was caught in between the two. I was at Tranmere as a player coach, also doing punditry. And I kind of got the buzz out of doing the media, and then kind of made a bit of a niche for myself. And then my career just kind of went down that path, really. So I did enjoy it. Again, I go right back to that, working in a pub for 3 or 4 years. You've got to find social skills, haven't you?
Yeah.
Speak to people and know how to adapt. And, maybe that's probably helped me why, I like talking, I like meeting people, and, and I do enjoy, but I love football. The punditry has changed as well. It's changed with the modern world, really. There's a clamour for instant information, data analysis. You've got to have a fine blend of the right political humour. You've also got to add in, your own first-hand experience of what certain situations are, but you've got to balance that with data and analysis and the clamour for instant information. But you've also got to read between the lines and be up on it. The game's forever changing. I do have a very critical view, my own view, political view on the game, things I don't like. The exploitation of the game. I'm very critical of UEFA and FIFA and some of the decision making that they have and the agendas that they have.
Okay.
I'm all for the women's game. I'm all for the game expanding in the right way. And I'm all for a level, fair playing ground when we get it. We don't often get it.
So last question, Jason. What is next? What's your future hold? We mentioned, obviously, off air, you're doing your master's degree. You mentioned being in Qatar, being in Manchester at the moment, where your family are. What are your future ambitions?
Well, touching on my last answer, really, with punditry, I'm heavily involved with beIN Sports. I still do stuff for the club in an ambassador role and working for Liverpool TV. And yeah, kind of, well, to probably mix in all the answers, because obviously Qatar as well. Qatar obviously gives me a lot of free time. So it's kind of sitting there, in my... I've got a nice studio there, which is getting smaller and smaller as the years are going by. But I sit there, often thinking, there's too much time to think here, so I need to be constructive. And like I said before, I've got this real interest in the way the game's going, and I did have a little bit of coaching. At lower league level, it can be very frustrating. So I kind of didn't take to it as much as I thought it would be. And then the game is obviously evolving, and there's more business side of it. So managers now, don't have totemic status. They've got to give out a little bit. So sporting directors are becoming quite a fashionable area in football. So mixing that answer all together, lots of time, my interest. I was offered to do the sporting directorship masters. So to fill my time, I thought, right, I'll do it online. So I started that, and I've become really engrossed in academia and reading and developing, and mixing that with punditry, which is I'll be honest, it's getting more and more difficult because a lot more people are thinking that they actually can do it.
Yeah.
But big organisations, and I'm not afraid to say it, are delving into giving people opportunities that maybe they're given opportunities maybe to show people that that's what they need to do, rather than they need to put quality into certain situations. So, in that sense, I'm in a predicament now where, I'm not getting offered as much work as possibly what I should be. So you know, there's more time, and I want to develop my, you know, I want to get away from Trigger a little bit, and show people that, you know, that there's more to me than just the daft person who survived in the dressing room.
Yeah. Jason, just want to say thank you for
I enjoyed that,
for coming in today.
Thanks.
I like how you speak so elegantly. I like also how you relate to your growing up in a pub or kind of working in a pub. My auntie actually has I've grown up in a pub for 22 years.
Oh, you know.
Irish bar in Birmingham, which closed last weekend.
Oh.
So it very much relates to my experience.
You grew up in that area?
Yeah, I grew up in an Irish bar, so kind of familiar with that. Brilliant, because I saw all different types of individuals. Yeah. And you mentioned the element of communication. I think the reason I'm doing this is probably the reason why of my upbringing. So
I was the Guinness in there.
Very good, very good. It's closed now. I would have took you for one if it was...
Yeah, I would have come. I would have. Yeah. You could have treated.
Scanlon's, it was called.
Scanlon's.
Yeah.
Oh, it shut down.
Shut down, yeah. Oh. But also as well, I've got friends that are big Liverpool fans. So when I found out I was speaking to you today, they were very excited for this interview. So just want to thank you again and good luck in the future.
Brilliant. Thanks very much for having me. Yeah.